Yes, Sharad, could we come in here on the nature of these charges? Which way this investigation has gone, because you've obviously been tracking it since the start, and whether now there can be any excuse mustered up by Vivo.
Well, fraud seems to be become a synonym, Uday, of Chinese business. I mean, if we call China's business, just call it by another name, fraud, because that's what you're witnessing across the world, not just in India. And what these companies were doing, the 22 companies, because it was trying to remit. See, what was the basic intention? The intention was that make money here, collect revenue, and because the Indian laws, the Indian foreign exchange laws, the Indian tax laws, they impose on you certain conditions. You have to comply by them. You have to pay your taxes and pay taxes in the legal way, whether it is withholding tax, which in India is called TDS, the tax deducted at source, or whether it is complying with the foreign exchange regulations. To bypass all of this today, they were trying every single nefarious means. They were floating companies, they were laundering money. In fact, one of the company pertains to Jammu and Kashmir, where it's supposed to be one of their dealers. So these companies were floated because if you try and remit funds from one single company, it comes in the eye. I mean, that company gets flagged off. So what it tried to do was to have multiple companies, that maybe we transfer smaller tranches from each one of these companies, and probably they thought that Indian authorities are a fool. And I think that is where they have gone wrong. Although I would say that we are a bit delayed in certain regard. We should have nipped it in the bud. The point when these funds were being remitted out of the country, Uday, we should have woken up at that time. But then this whole thing has happened because there are Indian minds who have colluded with the whole thing. I mean, although the Chinese directors are back home, they are sitting nicely over there. They have disappeared from here. But then this could not have been done without the support and without the collusion of the Indians involved, whether it is the bankers or it is the professional, whoever was involved, their advisors. I mean, somebody has colluded with them, because otherwise this money could have been caught at the time when it was being remitted. I mean, this could have been stopped from being remitted, if I put it in different words. So I think the Chinese way of doing business, and when they come to India, I have said on NewsX earlier also, Uday, and I said that a few weeks ago, and I would like to reiterate here so that all the people who are watching this show today, whether from the government or non-government part of the society, they know that when Chinese company walks into India, they carry an impression in their minds that from India you can do the business the way you want, या किसी को पैसा खिलाओ, सब काम हो जाता है, and they probably believe that corruption is the way. Here you just bribe somebody and the work gets done. I think this notion, Uday, has to be thrown out of their mind. Now here is the flip side, Uday, which is very important. The flip side is that if we take action today to shut down Vivo, which is well within our means, if we find that a company is engaging in fraud or fraudulent activities, especially a financial fraud, we can easily, through the registrar of companies, deregister the company. What will happen? The millions and millions of Vivo users, poor Vivo users in India, who believe that this was a fantastic phone and a fantastic company and a very economical one too, what will happen to them? Because they will have to throw away their phone, and the 20, 30,000, 40,000 rupees they have spent on this phone would be a waste. Apart from this, they'll end up losing. Point number 3. This is the first, this was the second. The point number 3. What happens to the data access which China has for all these users in India? They have all access to your contacts, to your videos, to your photos, to your emails, to your bank account details, whatever is in the I would say 75% of our life is in the phone. So China would have direct access to all this data. So I think any action taken from here, even if it is well within the boundaries of law, will have to be very carefully taken, keeping in mind, Uday, what happens down the road. Over to you.
Yes, Gautam Mukherjee, come in here on these, on Sharad Kohli, do you believe, the attempt is more than just making a fast buck, and these charges should be looked at now pretty seriously as to whether they were attempting to destabilize and threaten the financial sovereignty, integrity of India?
The financial sovereignty today is violated the moment you violate the Indian's financial system, the moment you violate the corporate laws, the moment you violate the foreign exchange laws. So, I mean, that combined is called violating financial sovereignty. But what is more important here is, Uday, that I'm surprised at the fact that how can China, who boasts of hosting most of the Fortune 500 companies in its own country, boasts of being world's factory, boasts of being high on business ethics, and when they themselves go and do business abroad, they're very fond of inviting people to their country. But when they go and do the business abroad, this is how they do the business. That is my first point. My second point in this context today is that I think going forward from here, I think each Chinese company in India, I don't think it will be possible practically to throw out every Chinese company from here. I really don't think, because the repercussions are very, very deep rooted. And today, I was telling on NewsX a few weeks ago that for 1 month Shanghai closed down because of COVID, their stupid no COVID policy. And to take a very simple example, a place like Delhi, Sadar Bazaar and Karol Bagh and Chandni Chowk, they faced a kind of a quasi lockdown because there was nothing for them to import. So such is the dependence. So therefore it will be impossible for us, with the kind of bilateral trade we are doing today with China, which is 100 billion, it is 125 billion for that matter, plus at this point of time, most of that is imports. We are so dependent that it will be impossible for us to throw out Chinese businesses from our country. But what we can definitely do is that each Chinese company operating in the country should be subject to a real-time monitoring. What is now happening is a post-facto monitoring. That is, अब पछताए होत क्या जब चिड़िया चुग गई थी. The money is gone, the Chinese directors are gone. So what we are trying to investigate now is to probably bring those people to the books or probably hold them guilty and so on and so forth. I'm sure the law will take its own course. But we need for Chinese company a real time. There is a concept which is used in the world of finance. It is called concurrent audit. A concurrent audit means that as and when the transactions happen, the audit should be done along with, rather than a post-transaction audit, because these Chinese companies, they are able to take the advantage of the fact that by the time the government comes to know, we would have flown away. So I think that needs to be done with immediate effect. All Chinese companies must be brought into radar, and all the Indians involved with Chinese companies. Now this is a very important fact today. All Indian nationals involved with Chinese companies must also be kept on radar. I'm sorry to say that because I'm sure a lot of well-known people may have been involved, a lot of well-known professionals may have been involved, but doesn't matter, because it is like if somebody is infected with COVID virus and if you met that person, you should also be quarantined. Wasn't that the rule? So I think that quarantine rule, being in touch with the person who's infected, you should also be tested, which otherwise means that the person should be under radar. His finances, his movements, his dealings with the bankers, his dealing with all financial institutions should be monitored from here on. I think we should take lesson. And the last thing I would like to comment here is that I think this whole investigation process which is happening now there, it should not go to a thanda baksa, as they say. I mean, this should be concluded till the end. People should be brought to books. I'll be very surprised, or I should say rather, I'll not be surprised if suddenly this investigation vanishes into thin air after a few weeks. We'll never get to hear as to what happened. I think that should not be happening today.
Okay, let me leave it at that. We've run out of time. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. A quick